It's the 31st of December, 2023. I'm going to be your host today, Dana Durnford. You can call in for this last show of 2023 at 709-589-4406. 4406. We got a poll for all the current viewers, which is 0. Oh, now we got 3. Did 2023 media claims that Fukushima never lost any radiation prove that nuclear is humanity's number one enemy? And I would hope that's exactly what it proves on this cold and winterly day. It's a winter day today on a big scale. We got snow for the last couple of days on the east coast of Canada. Freezing rain. And we're just going to jump right into it. It's not going to be a big show today. We're just going to do a short show. There's no show tomorrow. I want to put out a short end of the year ooh-ah-ha, so to speak, for everybody. And so the poll, of course, as of 2023 in July the 13th, the media worldwide is claiming that never happened. And this is 12 years of admitting that it happened.
There's about 60 million tons of contaminated soil that's being stored, planned to be stored, outside the Fukushima Daiichi perimeter fence. So
how can you have 30 million? They say 60 million. How can you have 60 million, I say 30 million, 1-ton bags? You've got a documented proof of the reactors actually destroyed. You got the media pretending they're in a building that don't exist. And the media stabbing you in the back now for how many years? 80 years. You got buildings that don't even exist anymore. And the official story now as of 2023 was that none of this happened. So I'm going to take you through some of the time capsules headlines so you can see what didn't happen. The official story is that it's equal to 3 grams of sugar. That's all. And that's a South Korean professor of quantum and nuclear engineering from Major Shakers and Movers. They picked up 30 million 1-ton bags. The food was banned by 55 countries and 10 prefectures. And now they just thrown all of this. You got plutonium-239 radioactive fallout covering the entire planet, models based on TEPCO's numbers. But officially now, none of that happened. And so I'm just going to take you through some of the stuff. Hi, everybody that managed to find me. I know it's an early day. Hi, Colette. Thank you. I love my Christmas tree, too. I put that up there just... I know not everybody celebrates Christmas, and just to remind everybody, it's the end of the year, and the new year is coming. We're going to win this battle. Black dust at 5.5 million atoms per kilogram. And so a BQ is a Becquerel, and a Becquerel is a pulse of energy. And each atom has a pulse of energy every second and could last for millions of years per atom. And so that's why you might see connotations of me talking about climate change and radioactive fallout, because radiation emissions, which you think of it as snowfall, it never goes away. And if it was snowfall, think of a snowstorm covering the planet in about 20 days. The snow never melts and it never stops snowing. Then get rid of the word snow, put in the word radiation fallout, and that's actually what's going on. So they had 5.5 million becquerels, which is atoms, per kilogram of black dust. These are, you're supposed to run away screaming numbers. 185 counts like the age of a whale, 185 years. So 185 would be an evacuation zone pre-Fukushima. 5.5 million atoms is not. And these are the first pictures of reactor 3 in the center and reactor 4 to your right. These are 100% meltdowns. These are complete loss of inventories. These are catastrophic numbers. So what I'm hoping to do is just to kind of get you up to speed on the reality. They're saying it didn't happen, and I have a ridiculous amount of documentation to counter that. But it doesn't. The world just seems to be sleepwalking into this extinction level event. EU-funded research, Fukushima atmospheric releases of 210 quadrillion atoms of cesium-137 as an upper bound in simulations. Chernobyl was 70 to 85 quadrillions, but it was actually it was so much more than that, because each of these buildings dwarfs those numbers in blanketed radioactive fallout that covers the planet. So they picked up 30 million one-ton bags, mostly in farmland and communities, and then told people that it was safe to go back. It's never going to be safe to go back. Local official, 5 million barrels a kilogram. We can't eat the food grown here, but we're forced to live here. And that's quite stunning when you think about it. Stuff like that is inconceivable pre-Fukushima. So the people that are living in those homes were tricked and manipulated and going back in those homes. And their children and themselves, no matter where they went, they had to pass by hundreds of thousands, if not millions of bags each day to get wherever they're going. That's the ultimate in cruelty. There's no need for the industry to be this evil. And they're only this evil is because you've never held them accountable for a single event in their life, in their 80 years of misery. Hi, Sue Sprain. Thank you. This is Reactor 3. Now, the official stories is, no matter what you're looking at, this never happened. No matter what the headline is, it never happened. But the reality of it is, it absolutely happened. So why is the entire nuclear industry worldwide suggesting that this never happened? Multiple explosions of Reactor 3, likely at least several hundred pounds of plutonium ejected. Plutonium. When you look at Reactor 3, it was several million pounds ejected, not several hundred pounds. And there was around 21,000 at least pounds of plutonium itself. And pre-Fukushima, there was a lot of academics would tell you that 2 kilograms of plutonium is enough to start an extinction level event on Earth. We're talking about each building had around 21,000 pounds of plutonium. There's 4 buildings melted down. These bags were only meant to last a couple of years at most. And when you see these explosions, that's the ejection of reactor cores from the reactor itself, but also from the fuel pools, which were at the top of the buildings, which had decades of reactor cores. And the only reason you would store fuel at the top of the building is because you were hoping for an accident like this to happen. You wouldn't do it if you had any kind of safety mechanisms in place. That's the very, very, very last place you would put the fuel. And so they obviously done this on purpose, hoping for an event. And they built it in an earthquake zone with 1,000 earthquakes a year, and where they have a 3,000-year legacy of tsunamis. The show is running now, Albert. Yeah. I'm doing an early show today because it's New Year's Day, and a lot of you people that are regularly watching the show might want to be doing other things. And so, but it's not going to be a big show today. It's only going to be a short show. Fukushima spent fuel as 85 times more cesium than released at Chernobyl. The biggest byproduct of the radiated fuel rods is curium isotopes. And curium isotopes need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium, which is named after the devil. It would destroy the world, environment, and our civilizations. This is an issue of human survival. And so they're far off the actual numbers. There's something like 1 million times off the actual numbers that has gotten out, because you're talking about 4 reactors and 8 fuel pools have been dispersed into the environment in fine particulates and aerosols that are catastrophic to everything with replicating cells. Yeah, hi Patrick, Happy New Year. And so we are in an extinction level event. That's what we're looking at. And let me explain that to you. I got a simple way of telling that story. Just waiting for my system to get caught up. Here we go. We're almost there. Now, I've done multiple research expeditions. This is videos from one of them. And so that video was it was on the west coast of British Columbia, up by Alaska. In adverse conditions, I was in a shelter right here and surveying and looking for birds, waiting for the tide to come down. And this whale showed up and gave quite the show. Canada has lifted all restrictions on food imports from Japan after 93 days, and 55 countries had banned the food from 14 prefectures for a decade. Canada removed all restrictions after 93 days. So Japan couldn't ship their food anywhere, only 2? That's right, Canada. The current 2 reactors they're building in the United Kingdom are both surrounded by farms and have been there. Other reactors are in those same places for over 60 years. So the radioactive fallout has poisoned everybody who ate the food from those areas.
Oh, okay.
The mass die-off of whales is catastrophic. There's around 10,000 grey whales alone have been shown up emaciated and died. And so this year they flipped that story and said that renewable energy like windmills are killing the whales. The whales are underwater. The windmills are above it, right? One of the most egregious parts of this story was that immediately the world has claimed that this reactor 4 didn't happen, didn't melt down, that the fuel pools were still at the top of the buildings and the reactor core was unharmed. And the media has come out in 2013, 2014, and this is just a fraction of them, with that same assertion, pretending they're actually at the top of the building in Japan that doesn't exist. And do you know of another incident where that has happened? Now, they done the same thing in 2021 with this building to your left. They claimed that building no longer melted down and that they got the fuel out of the pool at the top of the buildings. The top of the buildings where there's decades of reactor cores and the reactors all at the top of the buildings. This was a mixed oxide fuel building. And Colette wanted to know, was that was that the video that the picture came from. Well, no, Colette, that's not the video where the picture came from. But I took pictures at the same time. I'm just being a weirdo, sorry. So yeah, that's the... I took pictures, and so what you were looking on your shirt that you ordered was actually pictures. And I know I'm just messing with you, Colette. I'm sorry. I had to do it. I couldn't resist it. I apologize for being me. I know I don't have to, but I was just trying to fun you a little bit. Models showed up right away after Fukushima meltdown. This was the airborne disposition. And this model is based on 31 days of radioactive fallout, I believe. I'll tell you in a moment. Yeah. This one is based on 15 days of radioactive fallout. This is the French government. The estimate was 1 to 10 million becquerels. Yeah, I know. Sorry, Colette, I had to do it. This was another model I'm going to show you. Now, think about this model where it's only based on venting. It's not based on the actual meltdowns that I'm showing you. That's reactor 3 and reactor 4, for instance. There was 4 of the buildings and 8 fuel pools. This was an ocean model from a German institution of the dispersal in the ocean. So the planet was contaminated in 16 days. But even the scaled-back models...
Maybe worse than thought. Studies from last year indicate that radioactive water will contaminate the entire Pacific Ocean in just 6 years. Kim Min-ji reports.
This graphic shows the gradual contamination of the Pacific Ocean due to leaks of radioactive water from the crippled Fukushima nuclear plant in Japan. The simulation, which was run by a German marine research institute, shows the entire Pacific waters being polluted by radioactive water in just 6 years.
Right. And so you have an ocean model of the dispersions of radioactive fallout based on 6 years, but you have 16-day model of radioactive fallout based on venting, which is not the inventory that was actually lost. So if you put the inventory into this model, this is an extinction level event. Doomsday-like radiation is the correct way to depict it. Fukushima Plume with 1 million becquerels of the xenon-133 on the west coast, 20 million particles of iodine. Particles now, these are extraordinarily dangerous per liter. 220 million atoms per liter. So there's many different models or studies of the actual fallout. They came out and showed you the fake map, which was the tsunami map, and told you it was radiation from NOAA, when it was actually NOAA had a map of the dispersion, much like the Germans' model. I launched emergency research expeditions year after year after year after year. I was attacked and vilified and demonized and smeared the entire time. But we done it for 6 years, 4 to 5 months at a time, because of the truth, not because of the false lie. We done it because of reality. We were very aware of the radioactive dispersal, and that I went from Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska. And what I discovered was pretty stunning. I was very methodical. I spent 4 to 5 months a year at a time without coming home on the ocean. And I went everywhere and just meandered through the 27,000 islands. And what I discovered was the species to your left are exterminated. You'll never take the pictures of the species to your left again. Hi, Richard. You'll never take a picture of the species to your left again. They're actually exterminated. They're permanently gone. We exterminated them with Fukushima radioactive fallout. And there was a lot of reports of these die-offs for the first couple of years. And slowly, within a few years, the majority of the world had been replaced with the pro-nuclear community, and the media had went silent. These are authentic before and after pictures. We repeated it year after year to see if the species would recover. The species, and that's right, 6 gag orders, which we like to call 6 gold medals, 6 Medal of Honors. I was arrested when I came back from one of these research expeditions and given 6 gag orders that lasted for 3.5 years. So that a lot of people, well, basically it was to protect some of their assets and to stop the public relation firms from being exposed. So yes, we done actual boots on the ground through 27,000 islands. There's 27,000 islands out there, and I stayed on the ocean for 4 to 5 months a year, hoping that the species recovered. And we were hoping to find an oasis after all of this perpetual radioactive fallout. And we didn't have that luck. The media reveled in lying to you, manipulating you, and pretending that it didn't happen. And we should all hang our heads in shame that was able to take place, and that the nuclear industry had such a stranglehold on our medias and universities that there was no dissenting voices after 2015 to be found. There was dissenting voices originally. There was also reports of 865,000 extra cancers in the first year, and that's true. Japan's National Cancer Center said the number of cancer patients rose by 865,000. So if you have an extra 865,000 cancers in your country spike in 1 year, do you have the right to ask why? And not everybody has health care. Not everybody was diagnosed. There's many, many other illnesses and diseases. And then the next question you might want to ask yourself is, when you start looking at nuclear, is why are all the nuclear power plants surrounded by farms as far as you can see? They know that agricultural in particular is very prolific at uptaking the radiation. So when you eat it, guess what happens? You get sick, and you guessed it. So we have many different models. This is the Xenon 133 model from the Norwegian Institute of Air Research, based on 19.5 days and 468 hours of radioactive fallout in your bottom right-hand corner. The entire planet. All the models are in agreement that within about 30 days, the International Atomic Energy Agency is on the record as claiming that there is no safe level of man-made anthropogenic radiation, and that the allowable radiation standards are based on benefit. They're not actually based on safety. In other words, they're based on bananas and potato chips, not on uranium and plutonium. And so they should be dealt with severely for perpetrating these crimes, because the acceptable levels for your children, for your communities, and your hospitals are based on bananas, not based on anthropogenic man-made radiation. You are in significant danger and have been destroyed and poisoned and assaulted by radiation through your hospitals and everything else for 80 years. At what point are you going to make a stand? Whose responsibility is it to make a stand, if it's not yours? Nuclear radiation, by the way, is the most carcinogenic thing that exists. And that these extreme low doses of 50 becquerels a kilogram are irreversible heart damage for children. If you put 200 million of these atoms on the head of a needle, you can't see it. How do you find 50? That's what basically a becquerel is. It's an atom pulsing energy. But when you got 50 becquerels, you got 50 atoms. And so that becquerel is every second. It's going to pulse energy. So it's going to be, it's such a small amount that it's hard to comprehend. The CANDU reactors here in Canada are the most lethal emission reactors of all reactors worldwide. And the Canadian New Brunswick or Nova Scotia reactor, Point Lepreau, releases 16 billion 16,400,000 trillion atoms legally a year. Sizewell in the United Kingdom releases 8 trillion, which is still catastrophic. But Canada releases more than most countries combined, and they're surrounded, especially Ontario, by your drinking waters. All nuclear power plants worldwide, except for a very, very few, are surrounded by farms, and we have tons of studies showing that will end up poisoning you. And there's many diseases and illnesses and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries that will help destroy your health. This happens quite quickly, within days of the ingestion. A study from France shows a million times normal Fukushima or fallout from Fukushima worldwide. It was actually 1 million to 10 million atoms per cubic meter of air. So this is catastrophic. There's no denying this. 11 becquerels, 11 atoms, you start to see heart problems for children. So when you got 10 million atoms per cubic meter of air covering the entire planet, and the model you're looking at right there, by the way, is only based on the 18th, which is 7 days after the tsunami. The radioactive fallout never stops. So at 19 days after the tsunami, this is what it looked like. The radioactive fallout was covering the planet. Remember, these monsters are building the nuclear power plants and surrounding them with farms so they can poison you. They've been doing it for 80 years. At what point are you going to accept what's happening and fight back? Because you are running way out of time. You already ran out of time. And the time now is to gut up and be honest with yourself and do the moral and ethical thing, because they are busy exterminating everything. And in adults, 50 becquerels a kilogram is permanent lesions to your organs. Children are 1,000 times more vulnerable. They like to say 10 to 100 times. It's actually 1,000, because children just bear with me here. I want this to jump. There we go. Because children, when the radiation gets in their body, it ends up in their bones, for instance, and it mutates their stem cells. And the amount of illnesses and diseases that brings forward is, and this is true for all species, by the way, but also for children, their thyroid glands become saturated because they're prolific liquid drinkers. And their thyroid glands become saturated with radiation, particularly in the numbers I've already showed you. And what that means is that they're now producing radioactive hormones. So they're producing radioactive hormones and radioactive stem cells. And this is true for all the animals, all the smaller animals that are less than 2 feet high, for instance. All of them are as vulnerable as a child, and all of them will have these same attributes. And so there's no way, ultimately, in the long run, that they're going to be able to reproduce as you get generational. Once you start having a few generations, then they stop reproducing. And the industry is aware of this in the 50s, by the way. So what happens in the insect world, where they're able to produce multiple generations a year, is they go extinct within a year or 5 years, for instance. And some species have niches and some are prolific, like the mosquitoes, are feeder insects. And so there's always been a huge amount of them. And so when you wipe out their predators, they're still going to be prolific per se, but that's only because you don't have birds feeding on them anymore. You don't have the frogs feeding on them per se. You don't have the dragonflies. You don't have other species that would normally take advantage of them. Okay, so again, it's not going to be a very long show. I'm going to play 2 small clips from Harvard University post-Fukushima, and he's going to explain certain attributes of nuclear, And then if you happen to be researching this later, you're going to see conflicting reports that are going to make, because I'm going to show you the real stuff. The media and the universities and the academics will come out and lie to you if you're researching it on your own in the future. It's very difficult when you don't understand all the basics. So I'm just trying to run you through some basics. Let's play these clips. There's 2 clips. These are about 3 weeks after Fukushima. And we got little fractions of truth.
And in the US context, we think of REM, and I assume in the Japanese context, people would think of CVIT. The fatal dose from whole body exposure, median dose is around 350, 400 REM, or 3.5 to 4 CVIT.
Delivered pretty quickly.
Delivered over a period of hours, but in that case, death would follow over subsequent weeks. But that gives you an indication of the sort of hazard that you're concerned. So a few CVITs, if the dose looks as though it'll be more than 2 or 3 CVITs over a period of plume passage, for example, then you know that you're in a potentially lethal situation. Whereas speaking in microsieverts is not helpful.
Oh, I smurfed up, did I? Didn't have the audio on? My apologies. Thank you, PBS. I'll let you catch up here. Hi, Robster. Okay, we're back to audio. Sorry, folks. That's the first time I never turned my audio up in a long time. So let me tell that again, because we never really missed much. I went straight down and we talked about the EU. The EU voted nuclear green, which is absurd, right? There's no nuclear scientists working at Fukushima. Thank you, Sue. There's no nuclear scientists in Japan. It's the homeless and the destitute and the victims of society and the immigrants who don't speak the language. Each reactor in Japan is equal to 100 Chernobyls. So we just covered, hi One Sky, we just covered the little audio break that I always dread that could happen. That's one of the flaws of not wearing my headphones is you can... And so when I play those clips, I'll always like to turn off my background volume so you don't get any extra noise. But it comes with a risk that I might actually forget to turn it up. It's the last show of the year and got a tendency to make some mistakes, of course. So they faked reactors. They poisoned the entire population of the planet. They're growing food right alongside of one-ton bags in that picture. That's right from the mainstream media in Japan. Canada removed all restrictions. We have solutions. Geothermal can replace all gas, oil, coal, and nuclear plants worldwide. There's a number of companies out there, and they're using different techniques. Like this one is using microwaves, basically, to drill down into the earth. Other companies, another great company for geothermal, is using 25,000 psi water jets to cut the rocks as you're drilling down to your geothermal heat. Because all you're going to do is drill down deep enough till you get several 100-degree temperatures, and then you can boil water and create electricity, and you keep it in a loop. So it's the perfect energy. And then there's also technology that's going to show up in 2024 in mass production, and that will allow you to drill deeper 4 to 5 to 6 times quicker. In the United Kingdom, Boris Johnson removed the restrictions on food from the nuclear wasteland 3 years before they removed the food on adults for children. So basically 4 years ago, Boris Johnson removed radioactive food grown in the nuclear wastelands importation in the United Kingdom on baby food and cereal. And who eats baby foods and cereals is the children, right? So Boris Johnson is one of the most evil, insidious, monstrous, hideous, despicable creatures in human history for doing something like that. And these people are well aware of what had taken place, same as Raphael Grossi. Raphael Grossi, of course, is pretending that none of this happened. He's one of the people behind the architect of the mass campaign now claiming that Fukushima never melted down. That was the United Nations. There's 4 reactors melted down in Japan. That's reactor 1. This is where they were building a Kevlar sarcophagus around it. Reactor 2 is right there. That's 100% meltdown also. And reactor 3 is obviously 100% meltdown and rejected its entire core. And reactor 4 in 2013, they're pretending they're in reactor 4 building. Reactor 4 building actually doesn't exist. The reason they built the tanks was to manipulate you into thinking that nothing was hurting the environment. There was no way you can put this stuff in tanks because of its toxicity, and its emissions are like gammas and alphas and neutrons and betas. Hi, James Box. Hi, everybody. We're not going to be going much longer. We're almost through this today. It's just going to be a short video. And for me, a short video is quite long compared to the average person's version of a short video. And that's pretty well it, I would imagine, right here. I just wanted to put out something for today. And so tomorrow, which is New Year's Day, at least my regular viewers and the world that can find me will have something. Now, I've been doing a series of videos last week that I'm doing a recap of January. I've done January, February, and March last week, and they were brutal videos to prepare because I cover so much material each month, and the majority of it is just headlines, and we just go through it and help to articulate each headline a little tiny bit. And that still takes several hours. But it's quite the education per video. You can get an incredible education. Like if someone's new at this and they understand the basics like I'm showing you today, and then watch one of those videos, it'll make sense. And unfortunately, there's nowhere else on the planet that we can do that. There's nobody else out there actually educating the population with documentation on a regular basis. Let me just scroll down. We get a couple more in, and then we'll call it New Year's Eve day. I'm doing the show early so everybody's free to go out and enjoy their New Year's. And I know a lot of people will watch the show. If I do a New Year's show tonight, a lot of people will watch it. And I think it's better that I try to put out a show so you can watch it at your convenience, but also you got freedom to go out and enjoy the beginning of the new year, and try to enjoy it. I know it's difficult, but try to enjoy it, because that takes away their power when you enjoy it. They want you to have no joy whatsoever. We have disposition models of neptunium, which, by the way, decays to plutonium. We have disposition models of radioactive fallout of plutonium. We have dispositions models of cesium-137, extraordinary numbers from the French government. These are extraordinary. And these are proper numbers. Numbers probably should be a lot bigger, but they're, 10 million atoms per. Whenever you see Becquerel, think that each one is an atom. Just 2 of these buildings are a planet killer. They are going to start a cascade extinction event. And here's France's radioactive fallout after 30 days of radiation. That's 30 days of radioactive fallout. You had Helen Caldicott come out and tell you that the buildings are not destroyed.
Let me ask you this. You've said that if the spent fuel pool in number 4 collapses, that you would evacuate your family from Boston. Do you think we would ever know the truth of what's going on there? And the reason I ask is because we've seen coverage in the national news media here in the United States from ABC News and others that take video cameras in, saying that they're being given exclusive access to number 4 in the removal of the fuel rods, which is said to have begun. And what we see in the video being shared here in America is a pristine interior building. It doesn't look like a building in which the top blew off in a hydrogen explosion.
The Japanese are very tidy people, and they have, by robot control and by human beings, removed the debris from the top of Building 4, and it does look pristine.
But Helen, you can't do it. It's lethal doses. By human robots, or robots cannot go up there. When you say by human robots, what the frig are you talking about? All humans got 2 legs, Helen. Helen told that story in hundreds of interviews, by the way. Arnie Gunnison done the same thing to you?
Now, the division I ran built nuclear fuel racks for boiling water reactors exactly like Fukushima. And
Unit 4 has always been my biggest concern. If you watched our website, on the very first week of the accident, I was saying that if Unit 4 were to catch fire, you'd have to evacuate Tokyo.
Okay, so you got Arnie Gunnison telling you the building's not destroyed. Helen Caldicott doing it to you. You got major media.
1,500 highly radioactive fuel rods inside this pool. They've got to move them
pretending
outside
they're
of this
in the building.
reactor into a safer location.
Pretending that they're in a building that don't even exist. Not only are in the building, they're pretending they're at the very roof of the building, 190 feet above the stumps that remain. Okay, we'll let it go at that. Wish everybody a happy new year. Hugs for everybody. Thank you for everybody that managed to find me. And if you make it this far, consider giving me a thumbs up. Cost is very little, and I might actually save 1,000 lives. Neuter a nuclear scientist and save a generation of humans and species. That should be the motto of everybody on the planet. And don't, as long as there's at least one person telling the story, the world has hope. But it has to be the right story. You can't. And so the educational, me providing all the documentation is a way to guarantee. My apologies. Is a way of guaranteeing that I'm honest, because I provide you with the documentation constantly. And so it's a ridiculous, absurd, a sickening amount of work. It's hard to comprehend how much work goes into what I'm doing. I make it look fluid. Everything seems natural. And if you watch long enough, it seems easy, right? But every day is a very difficult day for me. And I'm dedicated to telling the truth. God bless everybody. Hugs for everybody. Have a great day. Have a great night. Have a great day tomorrow. I'll see everybody on Tuesday. And remember, the world's a much better place with you in it. Hugs for everybody. Take care, everyone.